Welcome to Street Smart Samurai. I'm Dana Abbott, and I will be your guide throughout this video series on Kenjutsu, how to wield a Japanese sword. There are many striking patterns and cutting angles one can choose from, depending on what style of Kenjutsu is being taught. As with any martial art or sport, there are many ways to strike an opponent, although at the beginning of one's training, it is wise just to practice a few selected strikes rather than a whole boatload of technique that might not work for you when you need it most. Your first cutting pattern is your basic V. It allows you to follow a pattern that cuts downward with your vertical and diagonal downward cuts. As seen up here, you can see that if you cut basically straight down and vertical, or at a right or left diagonal pattern, or any cuts that you can do inside this pattern will keep your cutting patterns consistent and smooth. This basic V is the area that offers the best, most practical direction to attack. Looking at this basic V pattern, you notice that all the cuts are downward, diagonal, or vertical cuts. We're not going to practice any horizontal or upward cuts at this time because it will open you up for attack. When you use your cutting patterns, for example, the basic V, you'll be standing in front of it and you'll be following the patterns that way. To make it simple, I put the pattern behind me so you can see me working the cuts a little bit better. But you can see that you want to follow up with this basic V and go over and over again. So 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and that's my 11 o'clock or my 12 o'clock. Always make the face of the clock your face of the clock, because remember, we are dealing with sorting and it isn't to block or deflect them an attack. This is more aggressive. Since you have a weapon, use it correctly and more aggressively. Lift it up in the air, follow the pattern. Eh, bring it up, ya, bring it up, to. Since we have established our V pattern and you are getting an understanding of how to stay in the parameters of that V, let's take that V and apply it to a target. We usually strike the top area, the center area, or the bottom area of the body or opponent at this time. We could go in for more technique and more minute areas, but at this time, let's just keep it simple and go to high, medium, and level areas here. At the very beginning, let's start with our 3 vertical strikes. Vertical strike downward to the head. Another vertical strike downward to the hands or the waist area. And of course, another vertical strike downward to the lower extremities. We can also cut at angles in this basic V pattern. The V pattern could just work on your head, it could work just on a section of your arm or your leg. For example, if I cut in angles here, or I can cut in angles here. We just want to make sure that the V can be wide, it can be thin, but if it fits over the whole target, it makes it easy. Sort of like you're looking through some sights on a rifle or a pistol. You have it into your target area and then you can cut. Where else I want you to look at is if I cut from my top right down to my bottom left and to the head. I bring it around, now I cut, same thing, but down to the midsection part of the body, and of course, I can do the third cut down to the lower extremities. And of course, on the other side, when I'm cutting from my top left to the bottom right. And my first executed cut is to the head, and then to the center part of the body where your hands are or your kidneys, up here, and then to the lower part of your body, lower extremities. After understanding these 9 basic hits coming down in a V pattern, then applying them until your muscle memory sets in, 2 things are going to happen. First of all, you'll be consistent and focused. The second thing is going to happen is simple. You'll be hitting your target a lot easier, faster, and they won't see you telegraph half as much. Before we go on any farther and discuss striking the opponent anymore, and what patterns we'll use to strike that opponent, we have to think where we're going to strike them with what part of the sword. As you well know, the blade here could be about 28 inches with about 12 inches of handle, overall about 40 inches in your average katana or samurai sword. Of course, you can cut them with any part of the blade or strike them with any part of this area. The difficult part is, will you be too close, too far away, and will it be good technique? As a general rule, at the very beginning in your training process, I want you to look at this last 1/3 of the sword as your striking area. It's called the monouchi. You would know it more as the sweet spot. So from now on, or for at least the first maybe 20,000 strikes of your training, I want you to make sure that most all those strikes use this area. And the reason why is it keeps you out of harm's way and it keeps you consistent. Let's apply what we've used so far in front of an opponent. Striking an opponent is not that difficult. Striking an opponent correctly and getting out of harm's way is much more difficult and challenging. With practice, your muscle memory will set in and you'll be able to strike efficiently and get out of the target area.
I am George, and this video is part of the Way Movement, a career path in video sponsored by TGN. To learn more, visit tgn.tv.